Could you maybe talk about the difference between the Torah,
Sure.
the Bible, and the Quran?
So there's the Hebrew Bible is actually what's called a step canon. That is, there are the 5 books of the Torah. Then there are books of history and the prophets. So books like Samuel, Kings, Judges, and then the prophets Isaiah, Jeremiah, Amos, Ezekiel, so on. And then there are what are called the writings. The writings are books like Psalms, Proverbs, Job, the Megillot, which are Esther, Daniel, all of those books, Ecclesiastes. So in Hebrew, it's called the Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. And that is the Hebrew Bible. Sometimes that's also called the Torah, just to be confusing, but really the Torah generally refers to the 5 books. Then there is the New Testament, which the Jews don't recognize as a sacred book. They recognize it as the book of another religion. And I sometimes say to Christians, in order for them to really grasp this, Jesus has as much religious significance to Judaism as Muhammad has to Christianity. That is, Jesus, although Jewish, became the founder of another religion. And for Judaism, that's not only in as much as Christians and Jews have had a lot of interactions, but religiously, Jesus has no significance. Said many beautiful things, said some things I don't like so much.
Like what? Like what?
Leave your father and mother and follow me. I don't like that as a religious model.
Yes.
Now, Christians
the whole
will
love
say,
thing is pretty good.
Christians will say that I don't understand that, but that's because Christians, like Jews, interpret their texts different ways at different times.
Right.
So anyway, the Quran, which I know less well, I have read it, but I know it less well than I know the New Testament, and certainly less well, obviously, than I know the Hebrew Bible, is in some ways parts of it are. I don't say this word. I say this word because I can't find a better descriptive word, but Muslims will not accept this. Okay, is a takeoff on the Torah in some things. That is, it's the same stories as the Torah, but they're different. Now, Jews will say, and I being a Jew will say this, that that's because Muhammad heard those stories from Jews and also heard midrashim, which are rabbinic interpretations of those stories, and he wrote those down. Muslims will say, no, the Jews got it wrong, and Muhammad came along to correct the record and tell the real story.
But they're all telling the story of the same
thing. The Hebrew Bible part, the Abrahamic part, they all tell the story of the same characters, but tell them. Obviously, Christians accept the Hebrew Bible as sacred scripture. The Muslims retell many of the stories in the Bible. What is common to all of them is that all of them are monotheistic faiths. Now, in Christianity, that's more complicated because of the Trinity, but as Christianity has developed over time, it clearly presents itself and thinks of itself and is a monotheistic faith as well.
What's the role of the word in each of these religions in the scriptures? So in terms of, first of all, the role of oral traditions, the power of the exactness of the words in the scripture, does it differ, or is it really within the communities it differs?
It differs because in Christianity, the words are not all the words of Jesus. They're the words of Jesus' disciples. None of the books of the New Testament were written by people who met Jesus in person. So they're different. And therefore, and also we don't even know sometimes the original language of some of the things in the New Testament. In the Bible, and I understand in the Quran, but I'll speak for the Hebrew Bible, the idea is that that's Lashon HaKodesh, that's sacred language, and Hebrew is that's the language, according to the tradition, that God actually spoke to Moses, and therefore the exact words are infinitely interpretable and meaningful.
But the words were spoken, but written by Moses, and the same with Muhammad,
right?
But from memory, or no?
There are different theories. I won't speak for Muhammad. You should ask. I don't want to get that wrong. I don't want to get another religious tradition wrong. In Judaism, the words are written by Moses at God's dictation, basically. That's the traditional view. There are other views that I'm happy to go into if you want to, but basically that's the traditional view.
So it's pretty close.
Right. What makes it different, what makes Judaism and Christianity different is Christianity has an ideal life. Judaism doesn't have an ideal life. Judaism has an ideal book. So the holidays of Christianity are events in the life of God, God's birth, God's death and resurrection. In Judaism, the holidays are all events in the life of the people, like the liberation from slavery, or in the people's relationship to God, like Yom Kippur, which is a day of atonement. But there are no holidays in Judaism that are events in the life of God, because in Judaism, God doesn't have a biography. God is eternal, and God never came to earth.